Welcome to the Strategy Genius Member School Spotlight featuring today the Shore Country Day School. I'm Joyce Tom, and I'm joined here by my colleague Jennifer Hua. And together we are part of the recruiting team at Strategy Genius. For those of you who are not familiar with us, Strategy Genius is one of the only BIPOC owned and operated search firms partnering exclusively with independent schools throughout the United States. For over 25 years, Strategy Genius's core tenet is to promote and champion equity and belonging in education by improving diversity through and we see everything through an equity lens, and we consider our member schools and educators as partners. The educators we partner with are diverse in many ways and dimensions, whether they're just starting out or ready to become head of school. The thread that connects our educators is their passion for DEIJB and the desire to seek out communities and schools that embrace and celebrate DEIJB. Our consultants have decades of experience mentoring and coaching educators. We're especially proud of how we have built relationships that spanned entire careers. We also take pride in supporting organizations and conferences that center diverse educators and equity. For example, we've been a major sponsor of POCC since 2001, and we're partnering with regional POCIS groups to help educators with their application materials. We take our partnerships with our member schools seriously. Like educators, our member schools are diverse in size, philosophy, and in many other ways. The common thread connecting them is their commitment to DEIJB. As their partners, we push our member schools to think critically about their recruitment, hiring, and retention practices as they pertain to diverse educators. Currently, we partner with over 130 member schools. Most of them are located on the East and West Coasts. Each school is unique in its own way, and we feel really lucky to get to know them when we visit and work with them. We realize that it's hard for educators to really get to know a school. We know that a website or social media account can't always convey everything that makes a place special. So, to bridge this gap, we are hosting the Member School Spotlight to give a school the stage and to let them share with educators what makes their school special and unique. So, just to give a few words about what our member school spotlights are, is basically it's a 1 hour focus on a member school. Um, it's like an information session tailored to educators who want to learn more about a school beyond the website. Administrators, and in some cases teachers, talk about the school, its culture, its programming, and other unique aspects of the school. In this session at the end, you as an attendee can submit your questions for the panel. Our spotlights are recorded for future reference and will be stored, and you can access them on the Strategy Genius website. So we're extremely excited to shine today's spotlight on the Shore Country Day School. Shore is an independent school that serves students of all social identities, age 3 in preschool, all the way to 9th grade. The school is located in Beverly, Massachusetts, which is about a 30-minute drive north of Boston. One of the things that caught my attention about Shore is that the academic programming extends through 9th grade. Shore's 9th grade originated at a time when various high schools did not begin until 10th grade. When high schools made the shift to include 9th grade, Shore decided to buck that trend, and today the 9th grade remains a premier setting for the pursuit of a student's freshman year. Shore 9th graders are asked to step up in every way, academically, extracurricularly, and above all, personally. The curriculum contains choices in the arts, language, and history, and students' selections of either advanced studio or advanced theater art places them in a full major academic art course that is a year-long duration. So that's kind of cool. SHORE's reason for being is grounded in both its mission and its equity and inclusion commitment. SHORE's mission is to provide an education that inspires a love of learning and encourages children to embrace academic challenge. The school's equity and inclusion commitment crystallizes its professional priorities of empowering the exploration and expression of their true selves, confronting biases, and honoring the diverse identities of all people, and pursuing individual and systemic cultural competence in order to model equity leadership in a complex world. With that, I want to pass the controls over to our friends at SHORE and let them share with you what makes their community special.
Thank you so much, Joyce. My name is Claire Ward. I'm the head of school. I'm joined here by my colleagues, and we're really happy to be here shining the light on Shore Country Day School. We thought we would start off giving you a little bit of a taste of our community and the sights and sounds of some of the things that we experience every day on campus. So without further ado,
SHORE teachers are deeply invested in each child's success, building strong connections that support students socially, emotionally, and academically, making learning joyful.
Our teachers work collaboratively together. They care very deeply about the student experience.
They will find here a welcoming place, a diverse place that they can not only see themselves, but also learn about other cultures. I see the joy and the joy in them that reflects in me too.
We're just constantly looking for ways to grow as a school, ways to improve, try to make our school better.
What you choose to give to SHORE, you get in return. We have faculty members and students who are willing to give all of themselves to our program.
Joy at Shore Country Day School is learning in an environment that prioritizes them. We as an institution are committed to helping children become the most confident and authentic versions of themselves. Shore is a great place to be a kid.
and then in the words of our students,
Sure, children are encouraged to be curious, embrace challenge, and explore the world around them. Our students are developing a love of learning, and they love to share their stories.
We do SAIL, which is science, art, and learning. My favorite subject is probably art or coding. Coding is good. I use iPads, and once I did like Gracie is like so fun, and I made one with math. We make stuff. One time we made ants. Everyone's like a team here at Shore, and it's fun.
I think my favorite spot is probably the theater.
Maybe just like sitting on the slide sometimes and going down the slide with my friends. There's like a little area next to the wind slide, and it helps people get ideas and stuff.
My teachers and my peers have always been so kind and so helpful. Miss Young, she's definitely been there for me during my hard times and my good times.
Miss Clark, she helped people. Nurse Saunders, she's a very nice nurse. She helps us when we get hurt or like when we break our shoulder.
My history teacher, my math teacher, I really like those subjects and they make it fun.
And now I'll tell you my other favorite teacher. It's Miss Rosati. Science.
Anything for singing? I took drama. We are acting out a skit. What makes you think that you could beat me in the election?
How smart out of that person.
You're saying I'm not smart?
Favorite thing about Shore is its community and how it's so kind, compassionate, and empathetic towards its students.
We did this project. It was just like memoir, like a big moment. We would make a first draft. They would make corrections for like stuff that we spelled wrong.
My voice actually used to be quite quiet, barely even raise my hand, but now I can like do all those things without like worrying.
I moved to Shore and now it's like a bigger challenge.
Who? Does anybody here an owl?
On girls varsity soccer, and then in the winter I plan to do basketball. The position that I play in baseball is catcher. For me, it's just play basketball. I'm currently playing soccer, shooting a basketball or throwing a football. I'm pretty good at those things. I think a kid should go here because there's definitely an open sense, and you're able to do anything here and be whoever you want.
I want to stay all the way to 9th grade because I love shore.
Challenge each other to keep on learning, to keep on becoming better versions of ourselves. Sure, definitely makes me feel respected. The community code is awesome and the kids are awesome. Shore makes me feel really good, excited, better,
Proud.
definitely 5-star out of 5 stars.
I like it all. This is so fun.
I love shore.
They pick those because they keep their eyes peeled.
So I think what we want to do now is kind of walk through from our individual perspectives as leaders at Shore, kind of who we are, and tell you a little bit about kind of our work. So as I mentioned before, my name is Claire Ward. I am head of school. I have been at Shore for 6 years. This is my second headship, and the reason I came to Shore was actually to do equity and inclusion work. I was at a school before that aspired to the work, but sometimes struggled with taking the brave steps that were necessary to dismantle the systems that were not always as inclusive. And when I came to Shore, it was very clear that Shore was interested in going in deep. One of the very first things that I did was to sit and listen to anyone that would sit and talk with me. That was back in 2017. And what we were able to notice is that there was actually a delta between what Shore's aspirations were for inclusion and what was actually happening. And I feel like for all of the 6 years that I've been here, we've been interrogating that delta and closing that delta and bringing more and more people along that can help us grow. When I speak with folks about coming to Shore, there are a few things that I think stand out for us. First of all, there is a big commitment to the morale of all of our employees. So for us, we use the word employee because there's not a hierarchy of work groups at our school. The way we view it philosophically is that everyone plays a role here in the education of children, and there's not one role that's more or less important. So we devote a lot of time and attention to taking care of employees, taking action in support and advocacy for employees. And the reason we do that is because we're very committed to building a trusting and professional culture. One of us, I believe it was Sarah, who used this phrase, "in it, not above it." And I think that pretty much sums us up. If I think about the day that I just spent today, I can think of many, many times when I was in it. In fact, very few that I was above it. But I think that's pretty much what we all delight in, is the opportunity to really be side by side with everyone who is rowing their boats in the same direction, all with children as their focus. And because of all of that, we have an enormous amount of community alignment, an enormous amount of dedication. I've not really ever seen a school before that was able to launch strategy and begin implementation as quickly and pervasively as this school has. And I think that has everything to do with both alignment and dedication. And when it comes to strategy, as it pertains to equity and inclusion, I mentioned before that when I came in 2017, we did a lot about talking about where do we want to be as a school and where are we really right now as a school. And there were a lot of great intentions. And we often see this in primarily white institutions where the intention is there, but not necessarily the action and the systems behind it or to back up that intention. So one of the first things we did in the first couple of years that I was here is that we brought a consultant in to do an inclusion audit. We did focus groups, we did online surveying, we involved our families, we involved students, we involved all of the employees. And what came back to us was a variety of recommendations of ways that we could actually take our next steps strategically as it pertained to inclusion. What I noticed about that moment in time is that very often leadership in a school is pretty ready to delegate that work to everyone else in the school. And what I notice is that what I felt as a head of school is that I had the board of trustees, our leadership team had the board of trustees standing right beside us in their commitment to get this work done. And that was a pretty exciting and affirming time for me. As hard as it is to read the outcome of an audit, it is really exciting to know that that alignment and dedication that I mentioned in the bullet above was actually going to get us through some of that hard work. One of the first things that we did after the audit was to draft the equity and inclusion commitment. This was really important to our leadership team because in advocacy for all of our employees, it gave us the opportunity to come to some agreement about what was our aspirational state. We used the Equity Inclusion Committee of the Board of Trustees, along with administrators and faculty members, to write that statement. And I found that work, that wordsmithing, some of the most fulfilling work, to be able to sit and debate which words are going to capture us for the next X number of years in terms of providing a roadmap. There are so many times now, and I think it's no surprise that equity and inclusion work is uncomfortable for any organization. If you're living at your growth edge, and you're very often living in some state of discomfort. And I think most of us find the solace, I guess, of the equity and inclusion commitment. When we're up against a growth edge, if we're going to get pushback from somebody on the work we're about to do, it's easy for us to point back to that very foundational work of the equity and inclusion commitment and to say, oh, here is why we're doing that work. To look at the school now 6 years later and know that it took so many people and all of us rowing in the right direction or in the same direction, I couldn't be prouder to be affiliated with the school. In terms of talking to folks about who's going to be happy here, you would need to be a self-starter. We are not a micromanaging organization. We value the creativity of the folks that are here. We hire exceptional people who bring exceptional ideas, and we look forward to championing those ideas and walking some of those journeys side by side. You should be somebody who's committed to long-term professional growth. That is a pervasive theme at this school. Professional growth is extremely well funded at this school. And it is also, in some cases, it's school driven, but in some cases, it's actually individual driven. And we love, as administrators, partnering with teachers and other employees to think about the next steps. We are student-centered. We do not enter into conversations where we debate what is convenient or ideal for adults. What we are focused on is students. So if we ever find ourselves in a tough decision-making process and we veer too far into the realm of what the adults like or don't like, there will be multiple people in that conversation that will raise the flag, get us focused and say, okay, what's right for children? What's right for the students? And then finally, we are a playful bunch. We like humor. We like play. We like to play with the children. We like to play with each other. So for us, we're really looking forward to having folks join our organization who have that enchanted sense of play. I think I am handing it off to my colleague.
All right, thanks, Claire. So I'm Andrew Lee, and I'm the Director of Instruction and Inclusion at Shore Country Day. And I should explain a little bit about what that role means, because it's pretty unique, I think. And it's what partially drew me to this school. I basically run the school along with Claire and Sarah and Oliver, and we specifically, the four of us, are the program administrative team that runs the academic program. And we collaborate with the two other members of the leadership team, which are the Chief of Institutional Advancement and Director of Finance and Operations. So the six of us, we are the people who support each other. We each have kind of our own roles, and yet we have really come together as a team. I mean, even starting my first week on the job last summer was a admin team retreat in Maine, where we came together and we got to know each other as people first. And that, I think, is really important in just reflecting on the challenges that are just inherent in running a school or working at a school, including just relationship management and conflict management. Katie Cousin, who's our Director of Institutional Advancement, she and I at lunch yesterday were reflecting on that as we were talking through some really kind of delicate strategy about how we were going to move forwards. We were just reflecting on how it was nice that we spent a week riding bikes together and like just eating at different restaurants together and getting to know each other as people, which helps us to really be able to be direct with each other and tell each other what we really think, which is important in any organization, but I would say particularly in a human-centered organization where we can both be compassionate with each other and candid with each other. And so actually that compassionate candor forms a big part of my life here at Shore. I really value both the care and the skill with which this school is running, as well as the humility with which the school and its leadership and myself bring to trying to get it right and just trying to move forward, knowing that the work is never done. Particularly when it comes to equity, inclusion, and social justice, it's never done. My phrase for it is wholeness, that we are always working to deconstruct systems, change policies, shift culture, and hire the right people to make sure that we are moving in the direction where everybody here can feel as whole as possible in all aspects of their identity. And that helps the institution be as whole as possible and as effective as possible. So I'll talk about care first. Care. I'll be really honest and a little bit silly here in that, that Jerry Maguire quote, that movie where Renee Zellweger tells Tom Cruise, "You had me at hello." That's really how I felt, like in terms of how I was recruited to Shore. And I think that's important to talk about because as we're doing this member school spotlight, you may be wondering, what's the hiring process like? What is it going to look like to have this point of connection and to get a sense of whether or not Shore is the right school for you and vice versa? Because it's a mutual thing. For me, I was struck by the intentionality with which Claire communicated with me when we were talking about the position and how it might kind of dovetail with my journey. And so, having now been here for over 6 months, that's the overriding feeling I get in campus, that feeling of care. People are here for each other. They really are. And people notice things, like when somebody is not being seen. Like, for example, in one of our admin team meetings, we discuss recently, hey, how can we build in a practice where we are making sure that every single person who works here is being seen, is being heard? Because that's not going to like make it a perfect place to work, but that's going to help with the behavior of inclusion, which really at the end of the day is, down to a school's leadership. What behaviors are we doing to help increase a sense of belonging amongst our colleagues? And so I guess that kind of segues to the skill piece. There's a lot of skill here in terms of the capacity for building a culture, building a community of learning and belonging that really puts the children at the center and puts the people who work with the children at the center as well. It's a humanistic place. And that's kind of the language that I have used like throughout my career. That's really my philosophy in my work, in my life, to bring humanity as much as possible into the spaces that I'm in. And so the crafting of this particular role just is kind of, I don't know, how do you say it? Some moments in your life where there's just something that clicks. Something about it, the crafting of instruction and inclusion, of involving the DEI leader of the school, which this role is, integrally in the core function of the school. Instruction is really important and fits with my skill set and my experience as well, having both been a curricular leader and a DEI leader in previous schools. And so I really thought, okay, this is a school being intentional and showing care. And when Claire told me that basically this position took several years to craft, that showed me the intentionality of the pace at which the school is going, which was a pace which is sustainable and a pace which is taking into consideration the speed of trust. We are moving at the speed of trust. We're moving quite quickly, I think, but we are moving intentionally at the speed of trust to make sure that people understand why we're doing the changes that we're doing and how that is beneficial for the students' learning and for the employee experience, really, at the end of the day. This is one of the things. This Member School Spotlight is an example. Basically, when I reached out to Strategenius and was building that relationship with them, and they told me about this, I was thinking it really fits within our broader strategy of how we just put ourselves out there, because we know we're doing good work here, but we also have to hold ourselves accountable, and doing so by, involving ourselves in initiatives which put us out there with the broader world, will get us feedback. I'm really excited, to be honest, to hear, see any comments that might come through regarding this Member School Spotlight, or questions about, what people would be interested in knowing, because we're brainstorming about that and being really intentional, and we know that we're not going to capture everything. What I think, what we're trying to do, and what I hope that we convey, is each of our personal commitment to the school and in our own lenses. And so that leads me to this last bullet point, which is again about professional growth. It's an ongoing theme. Part of my role is to oversee the professional growth system here at Shore. And part of that is using tools such as Folio, which is a tool that other schools are using, to make sure that we build in intentional time, space, and structure for showing appreciation, coaching, and clear evaluation for all of our employees who work here, including all the administrators. And just an example of how that works, Folio has this function where you can shine a spotlight on a colleague. And so I just observed one of my colleagues as part of her evaluation process teach a class, and right afterwards she was teaching another class, so couldn't really have a long conversation, but I could come back to my computer and send a spotlight of appreciation for being able to observe that class. And that's just one example of a tool we're using, because it's only a tool. Like the broader professional growth system is really dependent on the people, because Folio, we can use that to appreciate each other, but we do things like write cards to each other, show notes to each other. When people get married, when people go through other life events, we do our best to just make space and time to honor people's humanity. With that, I'm going to now transition over to Sarah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Knox, and I am the head of lower school here at Shore. I've been in the role here at Shore for 8 years. And prior to coming to Shore, was a classroom teacher in younger grade levels in 1st and 2nd grade. Did some curriculum development work and worked as a literacy specialist, and also dipped my toe in admissions for a couple of years, working as a director of lower school admission. I say this often, but I think one of the things that I enjoy most about my role is that on a day-to-day basis, I somehow get to function in all of those capacities. And work on a regular basis with students, but also families who are here at the school, and also prospective families, and most certainly teachers. And that's one of the biggest joys of my job. I think often about when I stepped into this role and onto campus 8 years ago. And I think one of the things that struck me most then, that I continue to experience on a regular basis now, is just the collaborative atmosphere that exists here at the school. It's not a single person, it's not a specific department or division. It really is the culture of the school for folks to be working collaboratively alongside one another on many projects all the time. And so stepping in, not really knowing how I would be received as at the time as a new division head who hadn't served in that role before, I was just struck by the openness in which I was welcomed by the faculty. And that has continued all along the way at every turn. And, I know it's been referenced by Claire and also by Andrew, but this desire that folks have here around professional growth and learning, I think is really what it's all about. Is this is such a dedicated group of people who love what they do and care very much about doing the best job they can for kids. And because of that, everyone has good ideas. So, you sort of constantly find yourself turning to a neighbor in the hallway or in a classroom or in the dining hall to say, hey, here's something I'm thinking about, or here's something I'm thinking about trying. Have you had experience with this? Do you have any ideas or perspective that I haven't considered? And so while we do have formal structure and committees and all of that, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, I think it's important to say that so much of what happens organically and naturally, where there really isn't the need for this higher power to put together a group of folks and ask them to engage in conversation. It's just constantly happening on the fly. With that, I will shift and talk a little bit about some of the structures and more formal ways in which we help folks to continue a path of professional growth and learning. One of the things that I want to mention is that we do at the school have a pretty robust professional development budget that's different from any other school in which I've worked. And I think that allows us to be able to say yes far more often than we have to say no. And so, maybe it's an individual teacher who is pursuing, and this image on the slide is perfect. We do have a full set of marimbas that are used in our music department specifically. And a handful of years ago, our lower school music teacher came to me saying, I would love to go to this week-long institute to learn how to teach kids to play the marimbas. That's not something we would bring to the school to train a large group of people because it's so specific to her discipline and the work that she does in her classroom. But we were able to support her as an individual teacher in that pursuit and give her what she needed to do her job really well. We also have opportunities that are more division specific or sometimes whole school. And I'll give you a couple of examples that are more recent. This year, we have engaged a consultant who is working with our entire employee base on the larger umbrella topic of gender. And he has spent professional development days with us, coaching us and listening and guiding. And upcoming, he will also spend time with Shore families and open Q&A sessions for families to support them in their journey in guiding their own children as they grow. Every year, we have a handful of folks that we are able to send to POCC. It is something that we offer to any work group at the school every year and have a long-standing relationship and partnership in that regard. And so another offering that exists. Other initiatives in previous years have included things like responsive classroom training when we make a decision as a school to onboard everyone with something that feels more philosophical and not specific to a department. And I think what that's done for us has allowed us to just be really consistent in our approach. So that instead of training little by little, one grade level at a time, we train everyone, we onboard everyone, and then there are continued opportunities as touch points to ensure that the approach is consistent and that we are functioning with the same sort of philosophical values in mind at all times. In addition to professional development, there are other internal leadership opportunities here at Shore, and I'll mention some of those. One is that of department chair. We do have department chairs at our school in both divisions. We've got some department chairs who overlap divisions. An example of that is our arts and music department chair, who really is responsible for overseeing that department through the lower school, right on into the upper school and through grade 9. We also have academic department chairs. So a department like math has its own department chair in the upper school division and its own department chair in the lower school division, with an opportunity to partner with division head and other department chairs alongside head of school and director of instruction inclusion to support the academic program. And so that's a role that rotates every few years so that there are opportunities for others to step into the role. Other opportunities include things like coaching upper school students in our afternoon sports program and athletics, taking on the role of advisor in the upper school as seed leader. We've trained a handful of folks in seed, also a position that changes every few years and new leadership in that way. And then things like being a search team member. So when we are looking to hire for a specific position, pulling together a team of employees who will help to inform the process, screen candidates, meet with candidates, and provide input around fit for the school, and then help in terms of retention in mentoring once we actually have new folks on campus. There are also plenty of optional committees and task forces at the school. One that I can share with you is something like a book club, where in the past I have purchased a book that I was really excited to read and shared with lower school faculty. You know, here's the book that I'm about to begin. If others would like to read it alongside me, we can create some structure that allows us meetings over the next few months so that we can discuss the book as we read it together. So just lots of ways to pull groups in different ways that encourage crossover that you wouldn't otherwise have, so that instead of staying within your own department or within your own grade level, you're constantly, you know, looking at ways that you can push into other departments or grade levels to get to know employees in the whole school. The last thing that I'll talk about before handing things over to Oliver has to do with the balance between the social emotional learning and the academic program here at Shore. I felt like I needed to sort of touch on program without doing a deep dive. And I think this is the thing that really stands out more than anything else to me, is just how much we prioritize a balance at every grade level between social emotional learning and academic learning. And really, the way we look at school, regardless of the age of the child, is that the child really is only able to be successful at school if they are in a good, healthy place from a social and emotional perspective. And so lots of programming starting in the lower school years and extending right into the upper school years around how to achieve that. So I think I mentioned responsive classroom. That is one of many of the approaches and systems and programs we're using to support the child in their development so that they can take advantage of the academic program, which is challenging at every turn, and gives them the ability to do that. Looking at the clock, I feel like I should shift gears, and I am going to hand things to Oliver, who is our head of upper school.
Hello, everyone. As Sarah said, I'm Oliver Hay. I'm the head of the upper school. It is wonderful to have the opportunity to talk about Shore today. For the last 15 years, I taught student science at Shore, 6th and 8th grade science. And a few years ago, I became a Shore parent. And then this is my first year as the head of upper school. And I'm one example of how our school cultivates leadership, which my colleagues talked about previously about this. I became a department chair in the science department 6 years ago, and I did that for 5 years. And then, as I said, this is my first year in my current role. And one of the best parts about being at Shore for so long has been the opportunity to grow and to transition into a different role. And I'm not alone, and that's happened for my colleagues as well. I want to tell you a little bit about student culture and employee culture, and I'm going to build off of what others said today. As Sarah was just talking about, we're really focused on providing a wonderful education for students, and that includes helping them develop a love of learning, supporting them while they embrace academic challenge. But it also includes focusing on social emotional learning and celebrating identity exploration. And one way that we do that in the upper school is through our Life Seminar, which is a course for grades 6 through 8 students. And it is an extension of topics and conversations that students study and take part in the lower school. And our Life Seminar complements our advisory program, and it's taught by advisors. And LIFE stands for Living Intentionally for Everybody. And it presents issues relevant to our students. And that's one of the highlights of this course, is that we've seen such good engagement because the students really are looking for an avenue to talk to their peers and to adults about these topics. And the topics include health, human sexuality, mental health, sustainability, digital citizenship, and anti-bias training to increase cultural competency, racial literacy, and equity practices. And the Life Seminar is student-centered, as Claire talked about before, and we use discussion-based classes to really bring everyone together and have that opportunity to explore these topics. Another way that we focus on student culture is through our Student-Teacher Alliance. And I use teacher there loosely because it could be Student Advisor Alliance. It could be a previous teacher. It could be a staff member who the student is engaging with working on an independent study, or who they simply have a connection with and chat with daily. And one of the ways we monitor that student adult alliance is through a survey that we conduct every year with our students. We partnered with Authentic Connections, and what we do is monitor student well-being. And one of the things that we've observed in the data is that students share how significant of a role the teachers and other adults at Shore play in their lives, to the point that students in the later years, 8th and 9th grade, when they're applying to high school, often talk about the fact that they're looking for a school where they believe they see a similarly strong student to adult alliance, where they're going to have the same type of opportunities to engage with adults like they have at Shore. And in addition to all of the work that teachers and advisors are doing with students, we also have a learning specialist in the upper school. We have learning specialists in the lower school as well. We have a school nurse, school counselor. We partner with a counseling company that provides additional support with our students as well. And then looking at employee culture, for me, the collaboration within the Shore community is one of the best parts about working at Shore. And I'm fortunate that I've been here long enough that I've taught multiple students in the same families, and had the opportunity to see students grow and come back and share where they are in their journey and or their career even. And it's the opportunity to work with families, to partner together to support the students, and to partner with all of my colleagues at Shore. And one of the reasons our employee culture is so good is based on some of what my colleagues already talked about today. We connect cross-divisionally, lower school and upper school, and all employees through a variety of different ways. And some examples include professional development, gathering together and learning together. And employee resource groups is another example, SEED being one that was mentioned earlier. We have a house system, which includes all students of all ages and all employees. And the point of the house system is to come together to build community, to increase the trust among students, and to encourage friendships. Many faculty coach, and one of the highlights of my time here has been coaching with different people and getting to know different adults at Shore that way. You know, and another one is just informally eating lunch together in our dining hall, where we have a wonderful lunch, or helping each other out, you know, really getting to know each other, and during social gatherings as well that we have. And lastly, when I think about employee culture, think about the fact that we have a really strong bridge between the lower and the upper school. And Andrew talked before about how the four of us are the program team. And it really is the partnership of the four of us that helps to bridge the fact that we have a lower school and an upper school. And one final piece on employee culture is that Shore employees choose to be involved at Shore in other ways outside of their primary role. One is coaching, like I talked about. Another is being involved with the plays. And faculty and staff also join students in music groups, which could be playing an instrument, singing with students, or both, which some of the people on this call participate in both ways. And so that's just such a highlight to get to see us together, whether it's at an upper school meeting with adults and students presenting, or at a concert when everyone's performing together. So that's a little bit about the employee culture at Shore. And now I'll pass it back to Claire.
So that is Shore Country Day School in a nutshell. I think I'm gonna defer to our hosts, Joyce and Hua, as to how we finish up here today.
So thank you so much for sharing a slice of what it's like to be at Shore. I think what makes these member school spotlights so, I want to say magical, because I do feel like being in a school has a little slice of magic. You really get to see the dynamics of what it's like to be part of a team, and a team that is supportive and listening to each other, but also be able to recognize who has skill sets that can be elevated and who has skill sets of like, hey, let me help and support you as you continue growing your journey. I think it's great for y'all to been able to showcase that, because you really can't see that anywhere else until you're sitting in front of folks and really personalizing the school, because it's not just about the school, it's about the people who are there. And the people are the ones who are help crafting and mold the experience for the little ones to become better human beings. Some questions that we want to start off with is being able to get to know y'all a little bit better, just so our participants are able to see and hear your narrative of how you got to where you are. So my first question to you all is, before Shore, where was home for y'all? And if you weren't local, how was the move? And how would you describe Beverly to someone that might not know the area that would entice them to want to move out there?
I could take this one since I'm the newest member of the team. So just before Shore, I was in Philadelphia, and but I had previously lived in the Boston area. So I was considering, when I was considering geography, I thought, okay, it's outside of Boston, and it's a little bit different. The North Shore is a kind of suburban culture. And when I came to visit, it was this time last year. There's snow all over the ground, and that's something that is part of the seasonality here. So Philly gets some snow too, but I don't know the exact data on this, but it feels like there's more in New England. I came back and I was like, all right, something in my head is that song "Coming Home." I'm coming home. Like something about that was like ringing in my head. I was like, okay, yeah, like something about the snow. So you have to be okay with snow, for one thing. But here's another thing. Like when I came here in the summer, there is so many beautiful beaches up here, like that I took my family to, took my kids to. Like there's a lot of great outdoor places. There's a lot of parks, a lot of different recreational spaces. My family, we like going hiking, so we've just grazed the surface. I mean, there's like 2 nonprofits that I think operate collectively of 230 sites in the Massachusetts area. So those are a lot of things that we like to do on the weekend. And another thing is, because I had previously lived in Boston, I knew that area, so I go there often, and that's important, particularly for in complete transparency, which is important here. Essex County, which is the county that is kind of almost synonymous with the North Shore, it is like 86% white. And so like that's one thing that candidates of color or other underserved, underrepresented communities are always considering, how are you going to find spaces where you can feel like you belong, both at work and outside of work. And for people who are not familiar with this geographic area, I will tell you that Boston is a really vibrant place. So for myself personally, I go there every weekend. Like my kids go to Korean school in the Boston area, and then we go into Boston. We go eat food in Cambridge. We go to Harvard Square and Central Square, 2 of our favorite hangouts. And we go to the Museum of Science, which we're members of. And that's for me personally. I know that other folks live up here and really enjoy the outdoors spaces like going skiing. I don't know how to put on skis. Like I've tried snowboarding and snow tubing, and I enjoyed those. But the operative word is there's lots of choice. You know, this is a suburban area, but an urban area is pretty close. The countryside is close. All these outdoor spaces are close. I mean, Cambridge and Boston are hubs of just everything you could want, like, you know, any kind of food, so many cultural experiences. So, you know, it really is home for me.
Anyone else would like to chime in and add a little bit? Okay, we'll move on to the next question. What are some growth areas that you're really excited about that's happening at your school?
I would say for us, the growth area, probably the most strategic growth area, really has to do with the next level of inclusion work. I feel like I remember saying a year ago, which I should never have said it out loud. I said a year ago that as a head, I was watching a lot of my colleagues go through moments of pushback on initiatives, DEI initiatives. And we really hadn't. We just kept moving at Shore, and there really wasn't a lot of pushback. Enter the conversation around dress code, and there we are. But which I think is true for any school. So I feel like this is the most important work. I feel like Shore is a well-resourced school. It's a stable school. So we're not working on some of the strategic elements of stability that other schools are working on. I feel like we have the luxury of doing much deeper work and making equity and inclusion a more pervasive part of the fabric. And we have all of the right people here to make that happen, which is really exciting.
I'll give a couple quick examples to build off of that. Oliver earlier mentioned we have employee resource groups, and SEED is being one of them. SEED has been here for a couple of decades, and about a third, at least, from my pulse check when I ask people to raise hands who's participated in SEED, about a third of the employee base has participated. We have a few folks who have done the actual training from the SEED organization, you know, the week-long training. And so we have like a very intentional system of them kind of being charged, but rotating off. And that's a big part of it. Like, to build capacity for equity and inclusion work, for wholeness work, it really needs to be spread widely, which is one thing that I really appreciated when I came here. Just the understanding that this is not one person's work. This is not just the employees of color's work. This is everybody's work. And so, you know, two groups that have been doing some of that work are an Employees of Color Affinity Group and a Alliance of White Anti-Racists in Education, or AWARE, is the acronym for White Allies Group. And so those groups are doing work in concert, as well as just being supports for each other, you know, because for people of color in independent schools, oftentimes we just need that space just to be together, just to be in a space where we're not in the racial minority for different conversations. There's a lot of different needs that people have in being in a community, and being able to have employee resource groups provides a structure to touch on many of those needs, to get pulses of what people are thinking about, of what people need, ideas, initiatives that come from those groups that help with the strategy of the school moving forward. So it's an exciting time in terms of our growth.
Awesome. And the last question, and if each of you could be able to speak on this, is what would your past self want to know about the school that you know now? So if you were talking to yourself before you got to Shore, and knowing what you know now, what would you want to tell them?
I'm happy to start. So I was in DC teaching before I arrived to Shore, and my partner and I knew that we wanted to move back to the New England area, and we knew we wanted to do it that year, and so we were excited to do it. And I was hoping I would find a school that would at least be a good fit for a little while. And knowing that once I got here, if after a few years, I had a better understanding of where I wanted to be, I could look again. Well, my past self would want to know that I found my school. I'll never forget the tour that I did on my interview day when I was here, and I started to meet people and learn about the school. And I had never heard of Shore. And fast forward 16 years later, I'm still here. My child is part of the community, and I just felt really fortunate to have been able to join the community.
I'm a Pisces, so water is super important to me. And when you get out of the car in the morning at 7:30, you can smell the ocean. I would want my past self to know that.
I'm also a Pisces, and I think that, something about the emotional attentivity of, I don't really follow the zodiac, but that's something that I've read before, that Pisces are emotionally attuned. Like that is true. And I guess that's kind of an awkward segue to just an anecdote I want to share, which is I would want my past self to know how amazing it is to work with teachers and students on a project together without even necessarily having a clear plan. And the example is we had 2 Lunar New Year assemblies in the last week for both divisions. And my goal is just to make sure the structure was there, that we had the time. But I knew I had my colleague, who's the upper school math department chair, and she and I are kind of facilitating the student group for a multicultural club, and there's a bunch of students in it. So I didn't exactly know how it was going to run, but my colleague has this incredible skill set to just be able to talk with 8 middle schoolers pretty much simultaneously about all these ideas, and like ranging from making a video of various people making dumplings to making a slideshow capturing both various different ideas to do with Lunar New Year, including how they're celebrated in different places, and centering 2 Vietnamese American students' experiences, to just the general nature of like being in a meeting with these students. 20 minutes passes, I'm like, what just happened? That was like a circus, and yet it all came together. And Sarah and Oliver here as witnesses, I think it went okay. Actually, I'll be honest, I think it went well because it was just fun.
I think the thing that came to mind is just like so much is possible here. And I don't know if I knew that when I was looking at the school initially. Like there's a lot of opportunity and room for new ideas and creativity, and folks who are willing to explore that right alongside you. So sort of like lean in, I think is what came to mind. Lean in quick. And I think the other thing, and I know Andrew just mentioned this, but no, it was Claire mentioned the ocean. When my husband and I were we were in San Diego. I'm originally from Massachusetts, but we were on the other side of the country, moving back to the East Coast, and did not know a lot about the North Shore of Massachusetts. And I was very hesitant. I think wanting to return to what felt more familiar, and sort of closer to home, what was home to me and where I grew up. And we were just so pleasantly surprised to learn what's here. And I know we mentioned it earlier, but we are a family who is constantly in the woods or on the beach or on a mountain or at every opportunity, and that's all here. And I don't think I really knew that, but know it now.
Awesome. Well, we are at time. Thank you so much for your comments, feedback about the school that you're at. We're super excited to be able to showcase all the great things about your school to our educators. Joyce, do you have any final closing words?
I think you've all said it. It's your Shore is an amazing place, and we are really excited just to really introduce your school to the educators that we are talking to. Thank you so much.
We're
Have
very
a great
grateful.
day, everyone.
Thank you.
So much.